Off we go. Good evening, everybody. Scott Stevens here with a look at the weather around, well, your neck of the woods, or at least some people's neck of the woods. We can't get everywhere, but we'll do our best. Not a really big weather day in the States. Some severe weather, some record heat a little bit here and there. Anticipation of another cold snap beginning to come into, let's just say it's gelling as it's going to be a likely event over the Northwest Central Rockies as we move into this weekend and into early next week. But for the time being, we've got some nice warm weather. There's also two tropical storms. One just not quite a hurricane. In fact, it's a healthy tropical storm, and then another one that didn't look like it was that potent, but once it made landfall, appeared to be a little more significant. So let's pop over to Twitter and have a look at what's going on around that area today. Let's do the legit view so you can see a little more what's going on. I still have a little gaze at me off to the side if that's even relevant. Some like it, some don't. And Risa, you can go back and finish the other video when you get a shot. It'll be there. In fact, it may be more interesting than the daily weather because we talk about in another perspective here on the same channel on my page. And also into YouTube. We're over there too at Weather Wars. Yeah, Weather Wars. My YouTube channel. I post everything over there if things get too far shoved down the timeline here. But as we look over to Twitter and hit some of the highlights of the weather that's happening around today, you can see those areas that are 10, 20 degrees above normal today, 10 to 5 to 15 above in the west, and then a little more so as we kind of are trapped in between the clouds and thunder showers across the deep south, and then cooler weather up into Canada. And I'm telling you, this big change with the sun is really trying to have an impact. All right, severe weather reports, some positive 2020 news, and we need some of that right now. The U.S. is currently below average for tornado, hail, and wind reports. You know, those kind of things that if they need to have a report, oftentimes there is also an insurance claim associated with it. So, in a month usually rife with severe weather, May averaged only 77 reports per day compared to the long term average of 122. So, about 60% of the normal severe weather events. And you can see those days highlighted in red, the 3rd, 4th, 15th, 22nd, and 23rd of May with well above normal. And then what is that? The 24th and the 27th, right in here. It looks like a periodic table of elements, doesn't it? 24th and the 27th with also above normal, but elsewhere a lot less than normal. In fact, some days even the 6th, the 1st, the 9th, where we had single digit reports. And so that's kind of a bit of a relief considering how hairy this is. This will probably pop up some video and read Tamira cinnamon bun occlusion happening with a high base thunderstorm. Now, I've seen a couple of these when I was doing chasing some years ago, and they're really kind of cool. And look at that baby spin up. And if you get kind of at the end of a whip, when you snap that whip, this is exactly what's happened. All that angular momentum now focused into this guy as you have these occlusions then begin to encounter one another. So really kind of a cool event, and that Reed Tamir, one of the famous storm chasers out there this afternoon and yesterday. On June 3rd, Europe's Meteosat 8 saw severe tropical cyclone Nisarga make landfall on the western coast of India, just about 50 miles southeast of Mumbai. And that's that storm. And that is one of those tropical storms that we looked at that I mentioned off the top of the show. And as we pop on down, we need to defund the Department of Metaphor with the iconic Acuity Insurance flag in Sheboygan, Michigan. In fact, we saw that line of thunderstorms this time last night, headed into Sheboygan. It was well after dark when it got there, maybe 10, 11 o'clock tonight, whenever, or last night, when everybody was trying to get to sleep. But it was the largest free flying American flag in the country, and it has been just simply torn in half after last night's storm. And I personally don't know how big that flag is, but it looks like it's a healthy beast with a look at all those one, two, three, four, at least 5 points of attachment, probably six with one at the top. All right, we're going to go back to India, and you can see some of the video as this cyclone made landfall. And of course, when you're in the midst of it, it's always stressful. It's always horrible. And you could strap down all that you can think, but there's always somebody else who did not. And their things are then tumbling through your yard and so forth and so on. And there's the radar and then the satellite imagery. It was a bit surprising, the 0Z UTC ATCF estimate for tropical cyclone, and it was just at 55 knots, and at 0130 UTC 89 gigahertz microwave overpass had a well-defined closed eye wall consistent with a mature hurricane, which instead of saying 55 knots or say 65 miles an hour, this thing was probably far closer to 85 to 90 miles per hour. And you look at the winds and you're just glad that you weren't there. The other one, Cristobal, the tropical storm, just made landfall across the Bay of Campeche in Campeche proper, Mexico, between Nuevo Progreso and Atasta. No mistaking this one as the robust center and eye feature coming ashore. And we were still anticipating this gal to work her way north, but now that she's ashore and dealing with some terrain, she'll kind of be torn apart. It'll be weakened, but the area of this disturbance will still begin to be drawn northward and then kind of hit a roadblock as it gets landfall in the States at some point on Sunday, late Sunday, early Monday. All right, another round of storms we watched last night was rolling through Pennsylvania with lots of lightning associated with that baby, and that is now well off the coast. It's so cool what we can do with these satellites and the lightning and the ability to that every bit of data is just a bit of data, and we can layer it, map it, merge it, and animate it so we can share these crazy things with you. All right, Hurricane Tracker app bringing Cristobal out of the Yucatan and then off to points north, and it begins to probably seriously impact that Missouri Texas border area where they've dealt with a lot of storms. I believe Harvey and Michael immediately come to mind, and then just some incredible lightning and thunder and 80 plus mile an hour winds as they approach some unsuspecting picnickers outside. So really kind of weather that you just need to, yeah, there goes the tree, and all of a sudden the neighbor's yard is perfectly visible. But yeah, they're probably exactly where I would be watching this thing, just under the awning and hoping to be safe, or trusting that I would be safe. All right, temperatures across the states right now. There's that heat that we talked about and saw. Let's close that so we don't hear the audio. 110 plus thermal, Palm Springs, Havasu, and probably El Centro in that area. It's still 102 or at least 100 plus in the Central Valley of California. Hey, Robin, Risa, Donna, haven't seen you in a bit. Good to see you on here, Donna. And then the 80s and 90s all the way through the Southern Plains states and in and around the D.C., Baltimore area, even down in Norfolk, Virginia, still 91 degrees on the hour. So that's where the heat is. And where the heat, we're likely to see a few thunderstorms as well. Copious moisture sitting across the Gulf Coast. And when those storms go up, and they have today, they tend to dump a lot of water. It's a little drier out west, but not so much so that we haven't seen those thunderstorms. And then here's the Cristobal, still kind of churning, still with the decidedly apparent circulation and just barely ashore. We'll move on to let's do this guy. Across the national part of the U.S., and there's the showers all the way through the Northern Rockies and some severe weather. Where we see the yellow boxes, that is where there is a current severe weather, or at least a severe thunderstorm warning out. And tornadoes are red, so across Grand Island, Nebraska, rolling into northern Kansas, and then a bunch as you move into St. Louis and so forth. The other big ones in the lower mid Atlantic states is and the mid Ohio valleys. So those storms going on, but they tend to be fairly quick movers. So we're largely safe in that regard. Storms continue through tomorrow. Not a whole lot changes from today to tomorrow, and then uneven out as we get into Friday. The heat's going to build, and that'll still trigger more storms in the Mountain West. Lots of record highs. We'll get to that right now. And tomorrow, here's the cities that will be, at least the models are forecasting to be within 1 degree of a record high. So we've got 102 down in the Texas Panhandle and so forth. So Ely, Nevada at 88. So there's a few warm places, and literally it's just about coast to coast as we saw in that earlier image. But what and then the heat as we get to Tuesday focuses farther south. But what I'm kind of curious about is some of the record cool highs that we'll begin to see out of the western states as we get to Sunday and Monday. And I'll show you the reason for that. And if you've been around for a couple of weeks, you'll notice I'm talking about these cutoff lows, these areas where the jet stream disconnects from the remainder of the jet stream. It's a cutoff because it's like you end up, so one of your friends, you're going in a train, you're driving off together, and one of you takes a right turn and then gets stuck in a cul-de-sac, and you really can't go anywhere. And then somebody's got to come in along and pick you up and say, dude, you're lost. So this is what's happening. We've got a cutoff here, another one into the northeast. And in grand solar minimum situations, we tend to see a lot of cutoffs. So we have another one that'll lift out of this Pacific coast, but as it leaves, it opens the door for yet another upper level storm to come on through. And this one, quite frankly, for the 8th, 9th, 10th of June is cold, just downright cold. So from most of Montana, the higher elevations of Idaho, probably anything above about 4,500 feet, a lot of the cooler locations in Utah, and then probably into Colorado as well. As we move to Sunday night and Monday night, there's going to be a risk of frost. And we've all, you get to June, you're like, okay, I'm safe to put out the tomatoes and so forth and so on. But it looks kind of iffy in that. And DD Friday, where you are, if you're in Crestone, you're talking about hot. That's probably going to be our hottest day of the year, easily upper 80s, unless a little bit of Mother Nature's air conditioning shows up and at this elevation and with a thunderstorm or two, and that's not out of the question. That's definitely not out of the question for Friday. If those roll in like they have all week long, we tend to get cloudy by 1, 2 in the afternoon, and that takes out the heat. I'm with you, Robin. I'm with you. My garden's out, and I've got a few things I could throw over them, but it's a battle with the squirrels and birds at this point of the ball game. And so once we get rid of this cool, the early part of the next week, there's another one that is right on in behind it, truly for the middle of June. And it's both corners of the country. It's the Northeast and it's the Northwest. And where's the heat? It's been squeezed all the way to central and northern Canada. So what the media will do, we'll talk about climate change, and it is. I'll give you every bit of that. But they focus on the heat and not the cold. And the cold is what is a concern. In June, who's worried about the heat? We need the heat to get crops to maturity. But if we've got cold, that becomes a problem because we already will hit solstice at this point, within days, within a week of this particular date, which is 14 June. And once we get to solstice, then the sun begins to retreat down south. So these lows then kind of weaken out, but we still have the jet stream that hasn't withdrawn north to central and southern Canada. It's still a fat 800 miles farther south than it should be. And that is truly my concern. All right, one last graphic because we're hitting up on my time here. And we're going to watch two places. One is a storm coming in this weekend, and then we'll watch Cristobal down here. The Northeast will stay cool, but all in all, everything else is doable. It's manageable for weather for this time of year. And we'll see the big storm of the Gulf of Mexico kind of wandering up. It gets to the Gulf Coast of Louisiana, New Orleans, and then it kind of meanders off to the north. It loses its gumption. But look to the northwest, this area. This is what, frankly, is a little bit scary. And I don't like to be scary with weather, but it's a concern because it's so out of season. And the blue is snow. That's snow. So these places that had a dusting about 2 weekends ago, Memorial Weekend, and it was gone by, Saturday night, Sunday, Monday. Well, here we are 2 weeks later and looking at almost the exact same scenario where snow levels in Idaho between 4,500 and 5,000 feet, and in Montana, very similar. So these mountain ski resorts would not be surprised at all to see them, with their webcams, with their press centers saying, "Hey, we got a foot of snow." And there's always going to be somebody that's going to want to take advantage of that simply because, and a little bit long range, 6 to 10 day, cool in the north, dry in the east, and then out to 8 to 14 days. Yesterday, this was all red. This was all warm, and I didn't share it with you because I didn't believe that they had pulled their head out of their back end yet, but it looks like they've kind of figured it out. And we'll see if that lasts for any particular length of time. Yeah, Robin, your baby fruit, my baby fruit, my bok choy is getting chewed up. I don't know if it's birds. We don't get squirrels in here. There's no way it can get in. So we've got some definitely have some, shall we say, vegetarian birds that are loving the seeds and whatever little is baby. Everything that's baby is tasty. And when it comes to the gardening. All right, guys, thanks for stopping by, and we'll begin to look at some funky clouds tomorrow. I'm working on just a little cloud tour kind of project, and I've got a big library, and I want you to share your funny ones or your curious ones or something that we can either kind of explain or just scratch our head and go, "What is happening there?" And that will be tomorrow. All right, guys, take it easy, and always stay safe with what's going on out there. Let's see who's on over here. What do we have? 8, 9, 10 over on my page, and a couple over Success Secrets. So good to see you guys there and for stopping by. And of course, if you see this on replay or after the live stream ends, or even on YouTube, give me a hashtag replay, and I'll see you tomorrow.